So I would love for our panelists to kindly come on and switch on their cameras and their audios. Let me ask you this question before we go ahead with the introduction. Can we have our amazing panelists? Okay, so the question is, and please feel free to take the answer. The question is, the biggest of companies are using cloud to store, process, and compute data, but what happens when it starts to rain? Like it's happening now everywhere. What happens when it starts to rain? Mr. Mukesh, you're the only one with the audio on.
Okay, so I think depends upon what exactly the rain is, how heavy the rain is and things like that. But eventually, I think it depends upon your foundations. I think the session before with Ganesh was essentially talking about the baby steps and having a strong foundation. So it sounds IoT, cloud, very sexy, etc. But you need to have a very strong foundation with all the security, all the compliance, all the risk-related stuff studied much in advance before you start that journey, and do it right, so that any rainy day will not impact your directly your issues with your technology infrastructure.
Mr. Mukesh, firstly, I'd like to thank you for actually taking a very good perspective, giving a perspective to this question and not asking Team Exit to keep. Can you please ask Nikita to leave? So thank you so much for that. Fantastic answer. Ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce our amazing panelists. We have Andreas Yunanto, the Head of Information Technology of Kalbe eHealth. We have Dr. Sean Lam, of Head of Data Science, SingHealth. We have Muni Vinay Kamisetty, the Senior Vice President, Regional Head of Data and BI Enterprise Intelligent, Lazada. We have Mukesh Pilania, the Head of Digital Transformation, Techcombank. Gentlemen, give me a thumbs up if you are all ready, set to go. Fantastic, fantastic. All right, our very first question is for Dr. Lam. Dr. Lam, so this seems to be quite a paragraph, so I would love for you to just stay with me and be a little patient. As COVID-19 restrictions, began to ease, organizations are assessing the impact on their digital transformation plans. Some are drastically scaling back, while others are accelerating. So the very first set of questions is, how do we reset? And the second is, how do we navigate the disruption to our timelines, staffing, and potential budget issues?
Thanks, Nikita, for organizing this, as well as inviting the panels here. I think this is a wonderful gathering of top industry leaders. And for this COVID-19, right, I will actually say that from a transformation perspective, what I've been seeing, I think in multiple industry, in healthcare as well, that there is actually an acceleration of transformation rather than a delay in the transformational initiatives. And one reason that I think that is the case is because we are kind of like being forced to adopt new technologies in the COVID-19 time. Say, for example, in healthcare, right, there are concerns about higher risk of patients visiting healthcare institutions and so forth. And that's where we see actually a kind of like a revival of interest in telemedicine. In the past, we were always talking about, I'm from Singapore, Singapore is a very small place. You just need to go down, take a bus, take the mass transit, and you can reach a healthcare hospital within 15 minutes or 10 minutes. It's very accessible. Healthcare is very accessible, and telemedicine wasn't that big an interest in that area as compared to the more vast kind of country like Indonesia, maybe Malaysia, and so forth. But Singapore healthcare is very accessible, but yet there is a need to actually look at the use of telemedicine and the effective use of that without a direct physical interaction. But like what we are having now in the Zoom meeting, we'll still be able to provide effective care and being able to understand conditions that patients are facing and so forth. So apart from that, right, you're also seeing cases where there are surge or resurgence of cases, and that actually lead to further lockdown and limited the mobility as well. But there is also a need to take care of the larger hospitals where all this surge in demand for healthcare arise, and it goes to these healthcare institutions. And in order to manage such large demand well, I think a number of technologies and actually the acceleration of technological innovations to deal with them is critical, absolutely critical. And that's where we actually see an acceleration of transformation. I mean, as simple as contact tracing, for example, there was no such need. Singapore is a very secure place, not from a security angle, but from a healthcare perspective, public health perspective, it is necessary. So all this actually just compounds to the fact that I think there was once I heard about, I think it was kind of like a joke that was in the public domain, the social media, that the main leader in transformation is actually not the CTO or the Chief Transformation Officer. It is actually COVID-19 that actually lead quite a bit of transformation. And I really sincerely hope that it will not be resetted back to where we were before COVID-19, because we are all digital kind of folks here. Yeah.
Okay, couldn't have agreed more, Dr. Sean. Dr. Sean, you speak about Singapore. Singapore, despite its small size, is one of the most advanced places to be in. So, what would be your take on how is it that Singapore, as a place, has handled COVID and the businesses? If you could just give us some perspective on that.
Right. From a transformational perspective, I think we see the faster implementation of innovations, at least a faster run up through a pilot before scaling up. Some even were I think scaled up in the lecture setting as well. And actually it overcomes certainly a number of barriers that we were seeing in the past, where the need was not so urgent. There's a need to make sure governance, security, everything is in place. But because of the urgency, I think the timeline for evaluating and assessing those have been compressed. And that actually makes a lot of sense, and it shows value as well in the actual operations. From the perspective of the healthcare operations, I think we have handled it very well through the use of technology, through the appropriate use of artificial intelligence as well, not just in the actual care, as it is also fundamental in terms of allowing us to be able to plan ahead. The necessity of being able to increase capacity ahead of time before you see any situation of congestion in the healthcare institution. That's why in Singapore we don't see that. It was actually, I think, very well managed from that angle. You don't see, in fact, there's a sudden surge of COVID-19 patients that come into the hospital and there's no capacity to handle. Yeah, so I think technology applies in various fronts, planning, forward planning, anticipation of this risk, as well as the actual operations itself, ability to make them more effective and efficient, so that actually reduce the burden on the system tremendously. Yeah.
Fantastically put, Dr. Sean. Moving on from one fantastic leader to the other, of course, we have Mr. Muni. So, Mr. Muni, we would, before we get to your question, right, we'd love to know, where is it? Which country are you representing? And where are you from? Where is it that you are taking this interview from?
Sure. I'm taking this conference from Singapore. I'm living in Singapore. But otherwise, I lead the data operations for the Southeast Asia. So probably I can provide references that not just relates to one country, probably a bunch of countries in the Southeast Asia.
Fantastic. We'd love for you to go ahead with that. Like how did you see that these countries or the places that you are a part of, how did you see them jump back to after of course the lockdown was lifted?
So I agree with Dr. Sean, right? It's not going to decelerate. it's definitely going to accelerate, and then the companies going to adopt the digitalization, right, core into the business strategy. There are critical reasons why they want to do it, right? Because your customers are changing. If you're a customer-centric company, you need to listen to the customers. And then in the event of COVID-19, right, most of the customers are also wanted to get into the digital. I'll give you an example. In Malaysia, right, March last year, the farmers dumped around 100 tons of vegetables in a day, correct? Every day it's about 100 tons of vegetables because they were not digitally connected to the sellers to sell it online, right? So which is where our company has pitched in and then could able to literally help them sold 40 to 50 tons of the vegetables in an hour. So here we're talking about adopting to the customer needs, right? And then you don't do that unless and until if they want digital, you need to put digital in the center and then take it forward. And then which is also very important that when you're talking digital, I heard there's a question about the budget. So how do you manage the budgets and how do you make sure you can support such digital initiatives, right? For my understanding, right, the COVID itself has created, or rather shifted its the bottom line, right? None of the people are actually coming to the offices. They're all working from the home. The seat costs and then the indirect cost associated with the employees has gone down drastically, correct? So and then at the same time, the automation and then the kind of digital transformations brought to the company, right? Roughly, again, based on my experience, it could able to bring about 45% in the IT savings. So the companies need to adopt on having a reinvestment strategies from these savings and put that into the digital budget and then streamline your processes and then be more effective. I think that's how you should manage the budgets. That's what we are doing in Lazada.
Mr. Muni, I think it's very modest of you to just say, oh, you've helped so many vegetable vendors sell vegetables. But it's not just that, right? With technology, with your company coming in, you've actually saved so many lives. You're helping so many families earn a living, which is absolutely amazing.
Absolutely.
So a question to you is, how is today's technologies, be it cloud, IoT, how is it enabling businesses to becoming intelligent, secure, and connected?
Definitely. So I'll address this question from a cloud perspective, right? For example, we are an Alibaba company, so we get most of these the IT infrastructure and the data infrastructure as a service from Ali Cloud, Alibaba. So to explain the power of it, right? Here, when you talk about someone like a IT guy or a data guy, most of the time would spend on designing these initial data pipelines and then building the stacks around managing them. There's a huge effort that goes into establishing all this, right? So pretty much all this can be like cut it down, and you can accelerate your data adoption and data implementation with the help of these cloud platforms. But I think, as rightly mentioned by Dr. Sean and Ganesh, right, it's also equally important when you grow these technology adoptions, make sure your governance and security are well balanced as well. So to me, it's both. You look at the adoption of these new technologies, but at the same time, make sure you're also the defenders of your growth, right? Have this governance-centric and then security-centric approach to adopt it in a much more safer, but then at an accelerated manner.
Fantastically put, Mr. Muni. Thank you so very much for the answer. Our next amazing leader is, of course, Mr. Mukesh. Mr. Mukesh, our question to you is, can you please share some of your experiences in transforming the legacy IT system? That's the first part. We'd love for you to answer, and then we'd move on to the second part of it.
Legacy, I mean, any person, any individual who's worked in transformation has done one of the programs to move from legacy to the new technology. So it's very, very interesting and challenging work. I mean, most of the big organizations who have been operating in their businesses for more than 10, 20 years, when they started, they adopted particular systems, then they started scaling up. And as a result, they used the technology what was available beforehand. Mostly in financial services and banking insurance, we used to have those AS400 based, COBOL based legacy platforms with those black green screens. IT folks will know that. So those are the legacy systems which we had, and then slowly you had to move to more internet based, web based solutions. So the challenges are multifold, because for a big organization, there's already a lot of relationship, a lot of data already inside this legacy system, a lot of transactions are already there. So how do you move those historical transactions? Moving the new relationship, new transactions from the point you decide to cut over is relatively simpler. You have to design the journeys, but then all the new business can directly go into the new application. That's okay. Moving that whole historical data migration of and transaction data, that's where the real challenge is. So there are multiple ways to address this issue. Rather than moving everything in one place, you can take a staggered approach. Rather than moving directly from or connecting directly the legacy to the new technology, you need to have a warehouse in between. You can have multiple staging in between to ensure that you can actually clean the data, take that opportunity not just to move legacy to the new platform, also take this opportunity to clean the data which you have been carrying for last 10, 20 years. So I think most of the companies have now moved. The bigger ones, which I know of, moved to the latest technology. There are some legacy systems still available, but there are more and more are more like dumping grounds now, where the historical data is there, and slowly the data is being cleaned and moved to either data lakes or their data warehouses to render to the more internet and web-based applications.
Mr. Mukesh, this is a very interesting point that you've made, right? You speak of legacy wanting to be in the modern technologies, but the thing with technology is, right, it's so ever advancing that today's modern is tomorrow's legacy. So how does a company decide, okay, this is the technology that we will be invest, because 20 years of legacy data and shifting it, choosing a technology. So how does that choice of technology happen? Because they'd be actually spending a good, I'm assuming 1 or 3 years in just deployment to the latest technology. So how does that choice of technology happen?
So choice of technology depends upon the problem you're trying to solve, right? Whether the technology you're trying to work on is customer facing, whether technology is just a backend for operational purposes, etc. Most important, I will say 3 key factors. Stability, because anything which I'm trying to compare it with the legacy system, which are your basically core systems, right? Anything core you want to buy, it has to be stable, it has to be secure, and it has to be scalable. So these are the 3 S, if you must say. So stable, secure, and scalable. These are the 3 key parameters. There are many more you can add to it, but those are the 3 things which you need to take care of before you decide what new technology you're going for. Right, depending upon how much it is used, which functional area you are applying it to, do you have enough support, enough community available around the globe to support you in development of that technology, etc. And this is, you are right, it's not a one-stop gap arrangement. You need to have continuous learning and looking forward on what are the new trends, what are the new technologies coming, and keep evolving. That's why all those waterfall methods of doing a project or delivering a system are going out now. Nobody, by the time you have your business requirement to the time you deliver, 12 months, 24 months, there's a new technology. So you're already redundant. So that's why more practice of agile, doing it in a go, try, test, lean setups, and you catch up with the latest technology and keep moving ahead.
Fantastically put, Mr. Mukesh. The second and the third point of our question is, of course, what I'm sure you, with your vast experience in transforming, in digitizing legacy systems, so what have been your challenges, and how would you recommend our audience members to overcome them?
In terms of challenges, data is the first challenge. Expectation in terms of speed of delivery and the quality of delivery, that's the second challenge. Because a non-technical person would think that it's just about the new technology, just pull the data from one place and put it in another place. It looks that simple, but it's not, right? When you get inside and when you start to connect the dots, there is without naming the company, I'll give you an example. We have worked on a project where we acquired another company, and the company which I was working for and the company which we acquired, both had supposedly same system from the same vendor. Right? So it was very easy assumption from all the tech guys. It's the same vendor, it's the same system. We just migrated, because it's acquisition, so you need to migrate all the customers and all the data, etc. simple, straightforward decision. But it doesn't work like that, because the application was same, but they were using that application for almost 10 years. And over those period of 10 years, you customize a lot. You make a lot of changes to the product which you actually bought from the vendor. So when you try to then merge the two systems, assuming it's same, so that's one learning which everybody should be very, very careful of. Even if you think the technology is same, or even the same vendor or the same product name, but predominantly moving things and changing from legacy to the new system is not simple. So look at the data, carefully consider how the data will be migrated. Don't directly migrate from one system to another. Have a layer in between to cleanse and streamline. Focus first, a quick MVP, minimum viable product. First MVP should be more on the new business. Get it over the line quickly for the new technology. Test it at least for the new business that works fine, and then slowly migrate the old data and the relationship. So that's my suggestion.
Fantastically put, Mr. Mukesh. Moving on to our amazing panelist for this session, we have Mr. Andreas. Mr. Andreas, what role can integrating IoT play in improving service delivery, health and safety, and efficiency?
Yes, thank you, Nikita, for the opportunity. I think this is the interesting question, because we know that IoT is become massively implemented in many industries. And one of them, for example, is in the manufacturing floor. When we integrate this system, the ecosystem and the journey of the creating the product, especially me in Kalbe. Kalbe Group is a pharmacy company. We produce the medicine. So we have to ensure that the product that we made is made efficiently and cost effectively. So for example, in our manufacturing process, we implement the smart manufacturing. So we installed the IoT devices, IoT sensors in our factory machine that can detect the process and give the report back to our command center. And so we can measure about the usage of the raw materials and the production batch that we have produced. So by doing that, we can simplify the process, supply chain management process from the beginning, from our suppliers to the production line. So in case the raw material is running out, the system will seamlessly connect to our suppliers, our raw material suppliers, to provide the materials. That makes us more efficient and more cost effectively in the warehouse and inventory costs. That's the one sample of the manufacturing process. And for the healthcare, of course, there's customer-facing applications that connect to directly to our customers. The way that we detect the customers' behaviors is really important, because the journey of our products not only one journey, but this is the lifetime journey. So we have to be able to detect the behavior of the customer from infant to until they're going to elderly. So I think this is the important case of the IoT and of course the cloud system. When we use IoT, the data stream will go huge amount of data. So we have to make sure that the data storage it will be flexible. So when the data is going huge, the process of the data, we must ensure that the process of the data and the accessible of the data can be manageable wisely and perfectly. So we can monitor the process from the manufacturing to distribution and to the customer facing application. We can monitor all the process directly and at any time and anywhere. I think this is the key important of the IoT and the cloud services as well.
Fantastically put. We couldn't agree more, Mr. Andreas. Mr. Andreas, we'd love to know which country are you representing first?
Yes, I'm in Indonesia. actually.
Oh, Indonesia, fantastic. So what was your, this is the Digital Transformation Summit, of course, and we'd love for you to shed light on how did COVID impact Indonesia's digital transformation?
Yes, yeah. As we all know that COVID-19 brings high pressure to all the business in the organization, but in other side, COVID-19 accelerate massive accelerating for the digital adoption. We being pushed to create the digital adoption in every aspect that we have as a business organization, especially in Indonesia, when we have a COVID-19, we have the first wave and second wave, the COVID-19 pandemic. So when the pandemic strike us, the demand of the telemedicine process is really huge, because all the people is being afraid going to hospital. If they're going to hospital, you know that the bed occupancy rate of the many hospitals is almost reach 100%. So they try to do a self isolation in the house, and they trying to consult with the doctor through the telemedicine. So one of our digital products portfolio is telemedicine. Is the uses of telemedicine is going really high and increasingly really skyrocketing.
Great, Andreas. Thank you so very much for letting us know about the situation at Indonesia, and we really hope and pray everything goes better. Mr. Mukesh, we would also love for you to tell us which country is it that you're representing today at Southeast Asia Summit.
So I'm currently in Vietnam, in a city, Hanoi. So Vietnam, so far for the COVID situation, was doing very good, I think, compared to last year. There were very few cases and managed very well. It just recently, in the second wave over last 2-3 months, the situation is a little bit not as good. So we have been trying to control the things. Still much better as compared to many other countries, but yeah, it's basically something which is beyond people's control. So in terms of digital transformation, I think Vietnam is a market, I think, in Southeast Asia for digitization is growing very fast, even before COVID. I think it's one of the countries which is, I think, not taking steps one by one in terms of digital maturity. They're jumping steps, and it's maturing, it's growing very, very fast. This COVID only helped to accelerate it even further. So you will talk to any financial institution, a bank here, everybody is talking about digital transformation. Personally, from the bank which I represent, the biggest bank in Vietnam, there's a huge focus on digital transformation for the next 5 years. So as a country also, there is a big focus on digital transformation from the government. So the country is doing really well, and I think this whole digital transformation push is further accelerated.
We're very happy to know that, Mr. Mukesh. Thank you so very much for sharing those insights. Our next question, the format is a little different. We'll ask one question, and we'd love to have two perspectives on the same question or the same question list. So we start off with Dr. Lam and Mr. Muni. The question is, we start off with Dr. Lam first. Dr. Lam, what, according to you, is data analytics community?
Sure. Okay. I from my understanding, data analytics is really something that has to be part and parcel of any evidence-based decision making. That's really leveraged on evidence to decide to make business decisions, wherever it is, be it in healthcare, be it in business, be it in marketing, and so forth. So I think prior to the prevalent use of data and evidence for business decision making, I think businesses typically rely on intuition, expertise, as well as understanding of the market and so forth. I'm not saying that those are no longer relevant. They are still very relevant, but it has to be augmented with data understanding, evidence that is really derived from what you see in the customer actions, customer behaviors, and so forth, that actually help us to run the businesses better. And from that angle, right, I would say the data analytics community is in fact everybody. I think to make it more specific, I guess technical competencies is definitely important, but beyond technical competencies in the form of IT, in the form of data science, in the form of mathematical training or so statistical training, I think the domain knowledge is important. Domain expertise is important to understand what the data is telling us. How do you derive the most valuable insights from those data, and what are the right actions to take so that the insights are indeed valuable? Because data is just data. Data without insights is useless. And what data analysis really is driving is not just also to insights, but also to eventual the actions that you take, as well as the policy, the strategies that you adopt based on the data that you see, that you analyze. So it's very broad definition of data analytics kind of concept. And for the longest time, I have been trying also not to kind of silo who are in data analytics, who are not in data analytics. I think everybody should be in data analytics. It's just what level of competency that you're able to derive the insight from data. And I think everybody is doing that. I think in just day-to-day life, right? But that expertise has to be built up. And that's the idea of being able to develop the talents, develop the skills, the knowledge to be able to leverage our data much better, as well as to understand the technology that surrounds that. The processes as well, processes as well as the policy and the strategy, as well as the governance aspect. So processes, I would mean that there should be definite encouragement in the use of data analytics technologies within any organization, be it big or small. Not being, I mean, for example, in Singapore, right, you can actually see data analytics curriculum all the way down to even the high schools and definitely the technical schools, not just at the university level. It's not, I mean, it is wrong to assume that you need a PhD or bachelor degree to do data analytics, I would say. Yeah, and I think technology is evolving such that it's really going to democratize this powerful tool that can help businesses. Yeah.
Great. Dr. Lam, we'd love for you to, tell us what are the opportunities businesses can harness by growing their data analytics community?
I think the opportunity is vast. Obviously, I think you also have to balance against the risk of analysis paralysis, meaning that you used to take just a snap of finger, you take actions, and whether it is really evidence-based or not, those actions do show value as well. So to a certain extent, there has to be a balance. We have everybody being, into data analytics, everybody looking at dashboard, everybody has its own insights. Ultimately, somebody has to derive that strategy or the action to be able to take the step forward. And that is actually, I would think, it is important as well. In order to take this forward, I think first, quantitative training skills at various levels is important. Be it just very basic use of Excel for somebody who is just looking at some simple data, all the way to using Python or data mining or whatever to do this kind of work. So I think it's a general entire value chain of activities, and ultimately all this activity has to lead to insights, and ultimately the insights have to lead to the outcomes, the right reason for the existence. So this is, I think, key in terms of, if you look at functionalities, functions of organization, I think across all functions, there should be some level of data analytics. Yeah.
Fantastically put, Dr. Sean. Mr. Muni, we'd actually present the same question to you, right? What do you think is data and analytics community, and what are the opportunities that businesses can harness by growing this community?
Let me put it for the people who are watching this across the world, right? They're all part of some of the other community, right? For example, I'll give you two companies, right? If you heard about GitHub, if you heard about Kaggle. So I mean, I'm sure the developers, data analysts, and data engineers are all viewing this, right? I'm sure they use these communities, the virtual communities, either to gain knowledge or to gain some tools and collaborate with the others and then learn something. And then the internal community is no different. It's the data analytics internal community that you form is also going to do the same thing. But what advantage would you get having an external virtual community over your own community, right? So the problems with the business operations are it's divided into the departments and the venture, right? For example, I have a team in Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, and then we also have a logistics focused team. We have operations focused team. So they're divided across different departments, right? They're all doing the same data engineering and data analytical activities. On the other hand, right, you have business who've been using the old Excel ways of using the pivots and then deriving something. But by then, due to the limitations of the tool, they could not able to go where they wanted to go, right? So it would be an excellent platform to connect all of them through a community, correct? And then the single objective here is to build a data-driven culture. So tell them how important the data is, how data, if you use different tools and technologies, modernized stacks, could able to break through your existing the Excel-based methodology and then create that value. That's very important. So I think that's what this community is going to do, right? I think Ganesh put it very well previously as well. So you lay and then put the data foundation, right? What is the use of this, the data marts or data lakes if you don't use it? So which is why, right, from based on my experience, the level of the usage of the data, right, or a data sovereignty of an organization, at least it goes by 5 to 6 times if you have a data community. Suddenly they say that, hey, there is this data table that gives you information on the employee scorecards, right? So how about I adopt that and then use it for my recruitment strategy? And then there is another HR guy comes and says, hey, you know what, I need that from an auditing perspective. So suddenly the business started harnessing the data through these communities. And then Dr. Sean rightly put it, you need to think about a federated approach, meaning you still need to have some control from a regional data operations, wherein it doesn't, you don't implement wrong methods or you put the dirty data into the system, right? You put some gates to make sure healthy data is being flown and then the healthy implementations are being adopted and prioritized across the organization.
Mr. Muni, we genuinely appreciate you summarizing all the speakers' points. Wow, I mean, it goes to show that you were present and listening to even the speaker at the previous session. That means a lot to us. Thank you so very much, Muni, Mr. Muni, for just listening to other speakers as well as this fantastic answer. Thank you so much. Our next question is now directed to both Mr. Mukesh and Mr. Andreas. So the question is, we'll start off with Mr. Mukesh. Mr. Mukesh, the question is, with 5G and AI at the edge, advancing IoT sensors and devices are becoming more widespread. What are some of the biggest current and future applications of this technology in the various industries? And the second part is, how will it transform healthcare, finance, retail, and security?
Okay, it's a very fully loaded question. So there are many technologies you mentioned. So it's 5G, AI, IoT, sensors, connected devices. That's on one hand.
Everything. You're free to kindly pick the technology that most resonates with you and tell it.
No, actually, it's the right question because these things are interrelated. So we know that we currently have IoT devices, connected devices with smart watches and some smart home appliances and things like that. But you don't see very strong use cases yet. There are like cliche use cases, you ordering a milk from your smart refrigerator, for example, but these are becoming cliches. They have not scaled yet. And one of the reasons for this scaling will come from a technology like 5G. So what essentially 5G is, 5G will allow three things, right? So speed, latency, and connectivity. So speed means you'll be able to transfer data much faster. Latency means action and reaction. So any action, any click, you get your reaction or answer super quick, right? And third is the connectivity, on how you can connect all these IoT devices much faster. So with the application of 5G, this whole IoT and AI processing power will increase a lot in application of solving day-to-day customer issues. So take example for banking, for example, right? So there are many use cases. You can talk about lease financing. So you do financing for all these leasing companies, trucks and these cars, etc., plying on the roads. You can track your performance of all these equipments and your assets, right? And you can do real-time decision making. Similar for your financing, risk management, for collaterals loan, home loan, car loan, things like that. So you can actually manage your assets pretty much easier, right? And if you really think ahead in a little bit more in the future, currently we're talking about mobile wallets and things like that. You can actually talk about wallet for things. So your car can have its own wallet. You top up your car goes and pays the parking fee from its own wallet. Your fuels, battery charge, payment from their own wallet. You can put wallet for your home. You can put wallet on your fridge. So there could be many applications which can be done as these technologies combine together.
Mr. Mukesh, I am waiting for the day, because I mean, oil prices, fuel prices in India have just skyrocketed, and paying for the fuel is now my car's headache. Fantastic answer, Mr. Mukesh. We would present the same question to Mr. Andreas. Mr. Andreas, what would you say is, the future of the application, the future application of these amazing technologies, be it IoT, 5G, AI, ML, whatever it is?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Mukesh. This is the widespread questions that include the many new technology and new infrastructure technology. Yeah, but this things, the AI, the 5G and the IoT, these things that will bring us to the future. But and now we know experience that the future is not any longer more, but currently the future is now, because we see that the implementation of the IoT is being in many devices. For example, if the simple way is the smart home. When you buy a house in Indonesia, actually some of real estate agent and the developers already equipped the house with the smart house appliances. So we connect to the system to the internet, and we'll do a great feature for the house, because the house becomes smart. You just say, hey, light the house, and turn off the aircon and turn on the aircon. That's just simple as that, because we combine the voice enabled devices with the IoT. It's the one thing that for the example, for the integration with the AI and the IoT. And the 5G is the technology that already being waited for a long time, because the IoT sensors, the IoT devices need a better connection. For example, I give you example for the why the internet connection is really important. One thing is the implementation of IoT is Internet of medical things. This is the IoMT. So the medical devices currently already equipped by the IoT for the, for example, the blood pressure measurement already connect to internet. The glucose measurement already connect to the internet. So many medical devices connect to the internet. So directly connect also to the hospital command center. So in case the patient or the customers have an emergency situation, the IoT devices will connect to the internet and tell the command center of the hospital. But imagine that if the connection is not good, so the alarm will come late to a hospital. So this is the emergency situation, but the alarm come late to hospital, and hospital cannot recognize this. And that's the one thing that I think the perfect combination between IoT and AI and 5G as a connection provider as well.
Great, great. Fantastic answer, Mr. Andreas. Gentlemen, we are down to our last two questions for the session. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, this is also the last two questions for our entire evening, morning, afternoon, wherever is it that you're from. So the two questions we ask in line to all our panelists. The first question is, what are some of the popular tools for creating, or you could also give a one-liner answer for it. What are some of the popular tools for creating digital map? We'll start with Dr. Sean. This is the question from Mr. Rahul Shinde, and he'd love to know your perspective on it. Yes.
For what? Creating a digital transformation roadmap? Or what is it?
What are some of the popular tools for creating digital map?
Digital maps.
Yes.
Sorry, maybe I defer to the other panelists before I can give my thoughts.
Dr. Sean, we will take your answer for the next question for sure. Thank you so much. Mr. Muni.
As such, tools, right? I mean, it's irrelevant. The more key factor is going to be the approach, right? Even if you use your small so-called your cards, and then paste it and organize onto your whiteboard, that works too. But otherwise, there are some digital collaboration tools that are available in the market. I don't want to name one or two, but some of them will enable your digital transformation journey as well. But I think the critical one is the approach rather than the tools. The tools will follow through the approaches. So that's my opinion.
Very well put. Thank you so much for the guidance. I'm sure Rahul Shinde will be very delighted to hear that. Posing the same question to Mr. Mukesh.
No, I think same. So don't get into trap of which tool is good or bad. I think it really depends upon what problem you are solving. So even though I've worked in business and tech and digital before, I fundamentally believe that a technology or a tool is just a means to an end. It's not really an end itself, right? So don't get into this thought process of, if I get this technology, all my problem will be solved. No, how you implement it, what approach do you take, how exactly you vision in terms of solving a problem will really help you. Whether you're using that digital map to map a customer journey, whether you're using that digital map to map your customer problems, you're trying to do it operational call center issue, depends upon which problem you're solving. And there could be different tools to solve those problems. So you don't have this one single tool don't have a magic wand to solve all problems.
Great. I think that's a +1 to Mr. Muni's answer. Thank you so much, Mr. Mukesh, for giving a nod for that. Mr. Andreas, what is your perspective on it?
Yes, I absolutely agree with Mukesh and Muni. Yeah, the digital transformation, the most important factor is not technology. The digital transformation, most important factor is the people. So the mindset of the people who will transform the way that they work, the way that they think, the way they solve the problem in the new way. This is the most important. I think the tools is just a tools that will help us to implement, to create the digital transformation. I think that's my question.
Rahul Shinde, I'm sure you've got your answers from all our, there's a resonating yes from all our amazing panelists. The second question is what kind of, and again, we'll follow the same pattern, what kind of security best practices do we have to implement if we decide to go on a digital transformation? Gentlemen, you could give one of the best security practice which you tend to practice. So we'll start off with Dr. Sean. If you could name one best practice.
Yeah, thanks for the earlier panel. I was not able to answer because I don't really get the motivation for your question earlier. But I think from a security perspective, right, I would say that the people in the organization are key to be able to uphold the governance and security, regardless of what technology that you bring in. The knowledge that the people have, even as simple as at the endpoint, being able to secure your own computer, wherever it is, your laptop or your equipment. Beyond that, I think there's tons of other technology. So I would say, to me, I think the people is most important.
Wow, that's a very ironic answer to side. Means data security is all about people. Fantastic. Thank you so very much, Dr. Sean. We'll move to Mr. Muni. Mr. Muni, what is your take on it?
So based on our experience, right, problems like COVID with the highest adoption of the internet also brings in new variety of threats and new variety of exposures. So that's why it's always a best practice to look at the security topic in the beginning itself as part of the initial plan itself. It is not an optional one, right? You need to add it in the first initial master plan, and then start very early with these kind of technologies. And the key success of this particular adoption is you need to be able to identify and having a visibility kind of a monitoring tools that could able to provide you the threat analysis and the exposure of your technologies is key. So visibility and planning it up early are the key practices according to me.
Fantastic answer, Mr. Muni. Mr. Mukesh.
So don't take shortcuts. That's my first suggestion. So every project has high timeline pressures, scope pressures, and things like that. Don't take shortcuts for security. It will come and haunt you very badly, especially in the current situation. So that's my number one suggestion. So whenever you're doing your builds, you're doing your agile sprints, make sure you do a pen test or whatever test you can accommodate. Start early, right? So no shortcuts. Number two, have a proactive approach towards security, not a reactive, right? Once you find a bug, once an issue is being highlighted, yes, you can do many things to solve it. The real strength is how you can proactively find out if there is a security gap. So like monitoring tools, which Muni mentioned, use monitoring tools not only for infrastructure, backend, but also front end. You can have some mock attempts to see the vulnerabilities in the front end also. So be proactive, right? So keep doing it even in production yourself rather than just waiting for something to happen. And third, in terms of the tools, etc., same thing. There are multiple tools available. You can pick whatever suits your current environment, budget, etc. But the thing is, don't take security as a duty or responsibility only of the IT security team. Now security of your feature, of your product, whatever you are owning in terms, if you are a product manager or senior product manager or project management, it becomes responsibility of every product delivery. So you have to think about it like you think about customer centricity, customer experience. Security is fundamental now for customer centricity.
Fantastically put. Thank you so very much, Mr. Mukesh. We asked for one, we got three. This is a good day to be. Mr. Andreas, what is your take on it?
Yes, yeah. I think the security is the really important things that you have to consider in terms of the digital products. Once you get in touch with digital products, then you expose your data and yourself to the internet. So I think there's two factors. The people, number one is the people. How the people really important to the security aspect, because from the beginning, the programmer create the application. We must take security aspect seriously, and the users of the applications also have to consider that they doing a best practice to implement the security aspect for themselves. Because when we use, for example, the simple password that can easily predict, that will be easy to doing the brute force attack to the password, and the system will be exposed. And number two is I agree with Muni, the monitoring process, the log process, and the early warning system is the key important thing that we must consider as security tools. Because once you get something broken, your system broken, you have to know as fast as possible that the system is broken. That's the usage of the what we call it early warning system. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Andreas. What a pleasure it was to have you fine gentlemen here with us. Thank you so very much. With this, we end our amazing session. And of course, we end our session as a total for the evening. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It was a pleasure having all of you. Thank you.